time of the preacher in the year of '01. When you think it's all over, it's only begun.
Howdy, Pilgrims, and thanks for tuning in again to Preacher vs. Preacher, a comparison companion to the television show Preacher on AMC, where we compare it to the book that it was based on. It came out in the 90s, and that was by Garth Ennis and Steve Dillon. Now, who are we? I'm Bill Sweeney, and this week I got my brother Bob.
Hey, what's up?
And on the Skype, we got Agent Palmer.
Hello.
Hello. And then we usually have Dom here, but he couldn't make it this week. And, everything's cool, nothing crazy. He's all right.
Yeah, he's good. We'll just have to put some chirping birds in there later.
Something. We'll fill in some kind of sound effect for him, like the old school TV and cartoons, I guess is what you're saying.
We can always throw that, like from the other show, we can always throw that email.
We could go through episodes of the other show and just build a whole thing. I mean,
That's true. We can make it like the goodbye episode for South Park.
Right,
for Chef
when they just
inserted everything.
Hey, children, and that's like all he said.
If there was ever going to be a question of, gee, could the guy come back as Chef? No,
no, we're not doing that every week.
Definitely not. No.
So the other show that we're talking about is that we are also from the Wicked Theory podcast. If you want to go check that out, that would be cool. We would love to see you over there. It's a little bit goofier.
So you're getting me to do 2 shows for free?
Hey, look, we're kind of giving them away for free too. So if there's no money coming in right now, there's no money going out.
All right, but you kind of snuck this one under the radar.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah.
So was this last season too, right? Oh, jeez, I'm just figuring this out.
Yeah, it's a good point. Yeah, I didn't want to point that out to you. But anyway, check us out over there. And you can check out our friend Agent Palmer here. He helps us out behind the scenes, more or less. Pops up every now. Occasionally pops up on the mic, too. Mm-hmm. But he's got a blog of his own, agentpalmer.com. Check it out over there. Palmer, describe your corner of the internet. For people.
My little corner is a geeky little corner.
Right.
Full of book reviews, movie reviews, a little bit of music, and, all things general geekiness.
I like it. Pop culture and all that goodness.
Yeah.
So sometimes you're a guy who... so...
See?
All right, that's that. Okay. I had nothing for it. It threw me.
All right, I had nothing left.
All right, so this week we are covering episode 3 of Preacher, season 2, Damsels. It finds our friends in Louisiana, in New Orleans, and I guess we should probably just get right into it. We're at that. Oh wait, the official business. If people want to email us. They can email us at pvp@wickedtheory.com. If you sign up with your Twitter handle, we'll shout that out for you. You can follow us on Twitter at PreachVSPreach. The show's on Stitcher, iTunes, Google Play Music. We would love
anywhere good podcast.
Sure. You can follow me on Twitter as well at BobWTPC.
You could.
You could look around through there. You can find Bill.
Yeah. At Wicked Theory, you can find Agent Palmer at Agent Palmer. So and
if you join, just follow one of us and look around a little. You'll get all of us.
Yeah, that's the network there, baby. Yeah. And so like I was saying, subscribe to us, rate and review us on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play Music, and then once again, we are going to give away another edition of Preacher Absolute, the collected edition.
Wow! So they're getting a free show and a free book.
But for the free book, you gotta come back.
Yeah,
you gotta come back.
It's not just any book either, right?
No,
this book is no joke.
It's a tome, I think, technically.
This is like the Bible in size. It's like
to nerds like us.
It's like a 150-page book, right?
Well, $150 book.
Oh, it's a $150 book.
Yeah, you had the number right.
That's where I got the number from.
That's where the number's from. That's good, though. Yeah. So, it's hardcover. It's oversized. It's got script pages, artwork and sketches.
War and Peace, or is this book about the show? Oh, this is book 2 for the show, right?
Well,
there's collected editions?
There's 2 of them, the absolute editions. People can choose whatever they want to do with it. Really, it's up to them. But
right. So this is volume 2. This is the next section of the story, and it's coming with a whole bunch of extra stuff. Right?
Yep.
Scripts, excerpts, etc.
Yeah.
All that good stuff.
All that extras.
So
Like DVD extras without the DVD.
so this is worth the work.
Yeah.
Is what you're
Yeah.
saying.
Yeah.
You want to try to get this for free. This is worth the effort.
If you really like Preacher,
yeah.
you want to check it out. You want
Kiss
to check
our
out the
ass
books.
every week for a while. Maybe you win a book.
How about that? All right. So with that wraps up the official business. Outside of saying that this is always a spoiler warning going out that we don't do spoiler warnings. We're going to give away the books. If you haven't read the books, that's what you're in for. So either you're all right with that potential, or maybe that's what you're here for. Maybe you don't want to read the books, and you're just like, hey, you know what?
Yeah.
I want to know where it's going, or what are the differences?
Right. Oh, yeah. And it's got to be this way because the show's gotten so far away from the original material now.
Yeah.
You can't really.
Yeah. Without
In order to compare anything that's going on, you got to just
be open about
you
it
got to be
all.
open about it all. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because they're pulling from everywhere to put together the story
Mm-hmm.
as they're telling it on TV.
Yeah.
You know, and then taking huge liberties.
Yeah.
Creatives for extra creative stuff.
Yeah. They're switching it up. All right.
So with that,
With that, drum roll, please.
opening credits.
Yeah, opening credits, opening stuff. The opening is actually Arseface in hell.
Well, we don't know that at first. He's riding his bike. He's all happy.
That's true. Yeah.
We hear the background music.
Yeah.
This is a very Norman Rockwell
Yeah,
kind of
small
moment.
town USA.
Yeah, he's
I'm on my bike.
Yeah.
You know, going to my girl's house, but it's
yeah.
not really his girl.
No, it turns out that this
We're-
a girl he likes.
Yeah, but it's the Tracy Loach. It's from season 1, and it's the girl that was in the bed. His whole backstory.
This is pre-brain damage.
Right, and we get to finally see how that all went down.
Yeah.
So
Does it didn't go down like it went down in the book?
no, right. So this is different than the books. In the books, this is right out the gate. First scene in the episode
First scene.
is different than the books, but we could talk about that right now, or we can get into it maybe a little bit after we wrap up to break down the
I
scene.
will say they had to make it different from the books just because
Right.
of what they put themselves into this corner in season 1.
Right.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of speculation
Right.
about what Tracy's involvement, not necessarily Tracy's involvement, but Arseface's involvement in Tracy
Yeah.
and all that stuff. So
Yeah.
I will say, based on what they did in season 1, this was a nice payoff. I know it's not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
I know it's different. It's not a suicide pact based on
Columbine-ish.
idolizing,
Right.
Yeah.
Cobain
Kurt
and all that
Cobain
stuff.
Yeah, the whole
But-
Kurt Cobain thing.
Well, they kind of had to do that. They kind of to keep they had to put it the
recontextualize.
yeah, they had to be recontextualized in a manner that allowed it to remain viewable 20 years from now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because
It's dated.
because it's so it's a very specific event that takes place in the book that leads
Yeah.
him to want to blow his brains out. So
Yeah.
that clearly couldn't happen unless maybe we all. The whole world got a favor, and Kanye West blew his brains out, and they did
someone
that.
was- right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
There's
But
nobody
there was
else-
Nobody else in recent times has blown their brains out. So,
Yeah, good point. Good point.
you know, they
You
had
couldn't
no-
really do somebody else.
So-
and end up with that kind of a look.
right, so how do you do it?
Yeah,
you have
right.
to make it something that's a little more centralized to the neighborhood
Yeah.
and the place that they grow up.
Yeah.
So yeah, actually, Billy last season, you had a very good.
Because I was going with the horse thing.
Yeah, because they would part of this whole thing was that there was this horse riding thing.
She had
aspect
trophies.
to it.
Yeah, she had
Yeah.
trophies, and she
So-
had a horse. So I thought it was like the shotgun goes off,
Right,
hoofs her in the head.
She's a couple houses down, which is like just enough that the horse can hear the shotgun blast.
Yeah.
and kick her in the back of the head.
Yeah,
Which would make great sense.
Yeah.
I was actually kind of hoping for that after
Yeah.
you said it.
I
but-
liked the whole thing. What I liked most about that aspect of it, because it was true in that first season, was like everybody was giving him shit still for what he did to her. Meanwhile, he was walking around with that face, and since they didn't give you all the details,
Right.
I thought it would have been a cool, not cool, but like really mean kind of thing where it's like,
Well,
so what? You blew up your fucking face. Look what you did to her.
Yeah.
I mean,
So-
let's talk about how feeling bad for Arseface for a second,
Okay.
because not only does he get friend zoned,
Well, don't even get me on to
Yeah.
friend zone stuff, because friend zone thing is usually as much as it's about your feelings and emotions as a dude, you end up there of your own doing. I've been in the friend zone quite a few times, and then listening to people, break down friend zones and stuff, I've come to the realization that you know what,
I hadn't
you
really
just
thought
can't
about
get
it, but
yourself
yeah.
out of it, and that's the sad part of it. But you were there because you're not saying anything, or
Well, I'm just saying he didn't realize he was there,
Yeah.
and then all of a sudden the next moment he's picking up her brains off the bedspread, trying to
Oh,
put
it's great.
her head back together.
Yeah, he was trying to smoosh it all back inside.
I do want to say that for as upbeat as he is in season 1 before he gets sent to hell,
Right.
it's amazing he's still upbeat after all that. Like, I get it. It's not the smartest thing to do to try and put her brains back together or to blow off your own head because of it. But he is still as bubbly a puppy dog as he was before that happened.
But it's a play on what happens in the book. I mean, in the book, he's like this dour teenager who's like meh about the world, and then afterwards he finds some like new kind of like irrational, almost love for life, and he's happy and upbeat, and he's like, "Hey, Dad, what's up, Dad? I love you.
Well,
I know you beat me and treat me like shit, but I love you, Daddy."
Well, doesn't he start seeing in the book? Doesn't he start seeing the world through Laurie's eyes?
Well, I mean, that's that's down the line. Wow. Yeah, you're right though.
I'm saying I'm going to call that right now. That's season 4
At best.
No, I don't know about that because a character like Laurie, the way that they're writing the show right now, she can happen at any friggin' moment.
Well, that's true. Anything can happen at any moment the way they're writing this.
Yeah.
So,
but getting back to things here, what were we talking about?
So we're in the room, and basically instantly we see that just like we said, he he comes here to help her. She's gonna kill herself. He's trying to talk her out of it. Makes a move on her, and even though she's talking all this slut stuff,
initially he does talk her out of it too.
Yeah. Right. Even though she's talking all this slut stuff, he kind of talks her out of it until he kisses her in this moment of where like, oh, I can finally get a kiss, and then she's like, oh, like you thought I would hook up with you? Like, ew.
Oh.
Like, and that's like because of the social teenage hierarchy. Like, oh no, you're like the sheriff's son. Like, you're cool to be my little bitch boy, but like, no. And then she immediately grabs a shotgun and goes for it again. He grabs it the last split second, and it only takes off the top of her head. He's trying to put it back in. And then, like, I guess it's this combination of, holy fuck, like, well, your that just happened. Mom's at the door. Fingerprints are on the gun. I'm covered in blood now. And Mom at the door keeps saying, I'm going to call your dad. I'm going to call your dad. He goes to do it. He pulls the trigger. The shell doesn't go off. The gun doesn't go
there's
off.
a delay. He looks down the barrel.
Yeah, and then looks to the side a little bit, and then boom, it goes off.
Yeah, but I don't really get that because
the physicality doesn't line up.
Right.
Yeah, I know. And the shot of the camera and like where like how his damage should be for that kind of a mouth only kind of thing.
Yeah, I think it would have been better if he had it like under his chin. It clicked, and he went, huh? And then just as he starts to move it, it goes off.
Yeah.
That would kind of explain it better. That's kind of what happens in the book too. It's kind of like he didn't line it up quite right.
Yeah.
To kill himself.
Right.
You know, that's why he ends up the way he is.
Yeah.
So
for this, it's like they didn't spend a lot of time trying to get some perfect angle.
Right.
You know what I mean? But it serves its purpose.
But in the end, it's the same result. He's
it's
alive with a destroyed base, and Tracy's dead now.
Well, now, yeah.
I mean, originally his buddy in the books actually does die. So
right.
I guess Tracy had what was coming to her according to the books.
Yeah, right. Basically, this group of characters, anybody in the proximity of this group of characters doesn't have long to live. But we find out that we're seeing this now because this is his hell loop, much like we saw Santa Killers go through in season 1. And thank God we're getting like the short, sweet version.
Sweet version. Yeah, we didn't see
the whole season dragging along.
Yeah,
and then 40 minutes of another one.
All the way through 7 or 8 times before they sped it up.
Right.
You know?
So it's a hell loop. It's cycling up. It's cycling through, and then we realize he's in hell, and it's basically being broadcast, I think, from this ceiling device. It looks like some Art Deco butt plug, and then he's in a prison cell in hell, which is not in the book. because again, none of this
None of this hell stuff is in the book.
none of this hell stuff is in the book.
No. I think they're just trying to include hell in the story because hell is in the original story
Yeah.
in a way that they're just not using, which
Right.
they should have just did.
Yeah, which is a thing where it's like,
They should have just gone the full HBO and just said, you know what, we're going to do it exactly like it is.
yeah.
You know. But that's another story.
That's a whole other thing. So with that, prison guard comes in, blah 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 blah. She leaves, tells him to stay there. It's a real long scene. It only really takes 3 seconds.
Yeah.
Cut to the opening. Is that where the opening credits come in? I don't know. But either way, one of the things I noticed in the rewatch is that, like, on the show, you'll like this, is that, like, you know, when the credits come up for each character, for each actor, you get some kind of iconic kind of shot of something from the show of that character. So for instance, when
Right.
Graham McTavish's name comes up, you just see the guns real quick. You know what I mean? So what happens for Pip Torrens, who plays Herr Starr, is that you just get this quick shot of a bare-chested man and nipple chains. Like his nipples are pierced and there's a chain going across between them. So
I didn't.
yeah, it was one of those things like you're only going to catch it on the rewatch because I was looking to see what was different about the intro this season because it's like that. I think that's what they're going to do every year is have
that is funny, though.
little kind of allusions and hints because that's what season 1 was. I realized that was all stuff they took from a couple of episodes that had already been produced, and so it kind of teased out things if you knew what you were looking for. Like one of the things too is that when Cassidy's name comes up. There's like these big fat pints of bagged blood that come up. So it's like, well, is that from an actual episode or is that just some symbology they threw in? But I think it's probably something that's gonna.
Probably something that's going to come up.
Yeah, you know.
Yeah, they usually tend to use things in these in trailers, in intros, and ending segments, all that from. That not necessarily that season, but through video that they've come up with over time.
Yeah.
So it's more likely that it's something that they're going to use.
All right. So one of the first things we see is straight from the book that was a blink and miss it kind of a thing that I didn't catch.
Right.
That thank God for the internet. Was that as they were leaving Texas, you got the now leaving Texas sign that says "You're lost, dipshit."
Yeah.
And,
you were in the restroom. I tried to yell that to you. I guess you didn't.
Yeah, you know what? And that came through the door, and I was like, What did he call me?" Because I'm like, all I called was something, and it sounded kind of like dipshit, and I wasn't sure.
Well, if I called you dipshit, you wouldn't even have flinched.
Yeah, I probably wouldn't have.
No.
Yeah, that's
We're
just
brothers.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's how that goes.
I've called you worse.
So that's straight out of a panel. That was just spray painted onto the road sign, same exact way. So, but on the road, they're talking and listening to some jazz because Jesse's doing his jazz research.
God.
Yeah, and it's they're listening to 14.
14 best songs you never heard of.
That's right, that you never heard, and
Not 14 of the best songs. It says 14 best songs.
yeah,
So it's like the crappiest English.
right. Who knows where they are on the big list?
There's a big list.
Well, you got it. Well, it's only 14.
Best. It could be the 14. It could be like from 14 different best lists. And it could be
Oh my God,
best
that's not
shittiest
even,
song ever.
Wow,
Best
I wasn't even
wackiest
going.
song.
By the way,
That's
I
some
will
serious
say,
breaking it down.
Tulip
Yeah.
really seems to be enjoying her jazz. I mean, really.
She's hating the
Yeah.
jazz. She's hating the New Orleans.
Yeah.
She
Oh, yeah,
couldn't
the whole thing.
She couldn't be telegraphing it anymore. That like
And he's
I don't
clueless.
want to go there. We shouldn't go there. And then like Jesse's not even like, what's the problem in New Orleans? He doesn't even like.
Yeah,
that
it's
would've
not-
been- okay, what's up in New Orleans?
It's like he never dated a woman
you
before.
know, or does he just know that she has a problem lurking in every state? like she's Florida.
this
She
tulip-
mentions, you know.
Yeah, with this tulip, that's possible.
So with that, they go back and forth a little bit about going to New Orleans, and then it's like, well, what do you? Well, you know, Jesse likes New Orleans except for the swamps.
Yeah,
Which
he
is
likes the city. He says he likes the city. Fine.
But the swamps, we get a quick tinge of foreshadowing, and if you know the books, you know that that's obviously a place he don't like to go.
Definitely not.
But it's the swamps I don't like, you know. And Cassidy's, oh, why not? And he's like, oh, family thing. And then
And then
Tulip-
quickly segues over.
Ryan, do you want me to drive?
Yeah.
You know, it's a family thing. You want me to drive to?
My car? My car?
No way. Yeah. I wonder. I do wonder about the car sometimes. I'm like, how long is this car gonna last in this show? Like,
Oh, it better not get a friggin' dent. I'll tell you right now.
Well,
it's
you know,
it's a Chevelle. Okay?
that's funny because as much as we want to protect it because it's beautiful.
Right now, those things are going for $100,000
Oh, I'm sure.
on the auctions.
My point is just that it's like one of these things where it's like it seems destined at some point where that thing's gonna have to that thing's gonna die. You know, some kind of momentous death.
I will just say this, that they are making, this is going to sound ridiculous, they're making little tiny tweaks to the show to make it a little more realistic.
Yeah.
Off the panel or from the page.
Sure.
And I just wonder, is Tulip really going to be the chauffeur for this? Like, there are times when they fade away and it's like, well, they've been driving for 8 hours. Like, am I supposed to believe Tulip is going to drive it? It's one of those things, like just at some point she's gonna have to, and maybe they're setting it up to be like a funny thing or like whatever.
Ongoing kind of, yeah.
You know, now you mentioned it, I'm thinking maybe now, sooner rather than later, is when the car has to go because Tulip can't drive all the time.
Yeah, and one character can't just drive all the time, and not only that, like as far as big cool things to do. Wrecking the car in the process of trying to get something done or breaking a fence down or something. You know what I mean? Like, it seems like a thing this kind of show will do. And then, okay, that ties their hands a little bit. Now they got to go steal cars and trucks like they used to.
Right.
Like they've been known to do in the books to get around.
And if they're going to get to doing something a little closer to the show, they have to end up in a truck.
Yeah.
They got to end up in a pickup.
Some pickups with Cassidy in the back under a tarp.
Yep. That has to happen.
Yeah, at some point, please. Okay, so she does protest too much and no one catches on, really. Okay, so then we kind of jump to New Orleans. We're in the bar. They're looking for God. And this is when we get the dog suit bit. They go through the back channels or whatever, down a hallway.
Yep.
And,
by the way, is the dog Herr Starr?
That's what I was thinking afterwards. Maybe, like, because I was mixed on it. I was like, are they just trying to do like a creepy moment scene with the thing in the suit by zooming in on the eyeball? Or is it really supposed to mean a little bit more? But it would be interesting if down the line you do see like that suit in his closet or something.
Right.
I just can't imagine that this show would wait. Like, they've done some ridiculous things off script or off page, so to speak, from the books. But it's hard for me to believe they zoom in on the eye if there's not somebody we're supposed to know in there.
Right.
That was my first immediate question to you.
Yeah.
Like, we're supposed to know this guy.
Yeah, and that's the thing too. And I wonder.
I didn't put the two and two together though with the possibility of Herr Starr.
Yeah.
Although that would be a really good one.
Yeah, that would be a nice little tweak. That it's him being freaky deaky, and we just don't. Me and audience doesn't know that about him yet.
Right.
But it's also like, well, then how long are we staying here? How are we going to explain that? It does seem like he's not in town, though.
Maybe he's just
when we do see him later.
Yeah, well, he's definitely in a very high-end hotel.
He's in like the main base of operations too, whatever that maybe. I don't recall.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
You know what I mean? In that, like, it's his office. He's got folders. We'll get to it all.
Okay.
Yeah.
By the way, I because you bring it up, and I know this jumps around a little bit.
I'm gonna fuck.
But
what?
Herr Starr.
Reach through Skype.
We meet Herr Starr in San Francisco.
I believe that's correct.
Yes.
Or out on the West Coast somewhere.
Yeah.
So my question is, do you think they keep it? We talked about this, I think, off mic at one point about keeping it all more centralized instead of having them crisscross the country all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So do you think Herr Starr's closer than maybe like 1 or 2 episodes away instead of however long it would take them to get to San Francisco?
Yeah. I mean, at the very least, they may not know him and run into him, but we're going to get to know him, I think, a little bit better.
San Francisco is only like an 8-hour drive from Texas.
I don't think he means physically. He means like story stretch-wise.
Yeah.
And here's the thing. You know, they've cast him. He's got a credit, main credit. He's recurring. Even the guy playing Hitler's got a credit in the opening now, Noah Taylor, who's actually played Hitler before. We're getting ahead of ourselves.
Okay, sorry.
A little bit. But I think people know that we do that. Okay. So at the bar, they're looking for the dog. Looking for God. It's a kind of dog suit. It's not what they came for. Doggy style, $12,000. So they leave. Tulip is she's still shook because she doesn't want to be in this town.
Before we get to that, just one quick thought.
Mm-hmm.
If the guy in the dog suit is Herr Starr, then maybe the guys in the bar knew more than we
Yeah.
originally thought about Jesse's quest for finding God.
Well, you know what?
Because they immediately took him to Herr Starr.
Yeah, but here's the thing.
Yeah.
On the rewatch, Jesse comes out of the bar, and some rando chick is like, "Hey, preacher, like, you want to find God? There's a back room," and he's like, "Yeah, I was already there." So it's like, for all them
Okay.
trying to keep it a secret that there's some dog fucking some dog show in the back, like, people know about it. So
I missed
because we're gonna get into how ridiculously oversized the whole plan to catch Jesse out there is when we get to it.
Yeah.
Because on the rewatch, it's like the more you think about it, it's like, wow, this is quite the machination. But let's work our way up to it. So we come back, and Tulip is all shook still. She leaves. We get a little bit of "Until the End of the World" line, which was nice.
Yep.
But Jesse's kind of like, yeah, whatever, because they're kind of like a little friction going.
Yeah,
Well, hold on.
because he wanted to marry her, and then last minute she got cold feet.
There you go.
So that's
But,
that.
But I will
That's
say,
where that comes from. Yes.
we touched on it a little bit in season 1 when Tulip and Jesse are kids.
Right.
But just for people that don't remember that,
Right.
Until the End of the World is basically Jesse and Tulip's "I Love You."
Oh yeah,
that's-
yeah. But it's supposed to be, but like, times 10. It's
Yeah,
it's us versus everything. Like, we'll go out Bonnie and Clyde style. Like, if it comes down to it, it just doesn't feel like it's gotten to mean that to the both of them just yet. Which it takes a little while in the book for it to get back there
It does.
for them. So it takes them rebuilding this thing, even though they're hanging out and loving each other and having sex. For the trust to be rebuilt does take a little while. So with that, we go. Cassidy's like, "Hey, I got a friend, Dennis," and if you've read the books, we're all like, "Who the fuck is Dennis?" There's no Dennis.
I have a theory.
Everybody does. It's probably the same
no,
one.
I think Dennis has got to be one of those old vampires
Right.
he was hanging out with that we get to when we go later in his backstory.
Right.
But I don't. There were a few of them that had names, but they weren't their real names.
No. Yeah. I don't. Yeah. The lesson fonts. He's French and all that, but I think if anything, they might be transplanting somebody's story onto him. But also too, it does seem like he might just be a guy who's gonna kind of be. He's got his own story or whatever to come along, but he's got he's supposed to represent all these. We're supposed to start seeing people that Cassie's burned, and we start to kind of get some more about that a little bit, person by person, as he runs into old friends, I guess. Like, it'll be the difference between when Jesse and Tulip run into old friends. Tulip's old friends, really like have some debt or vendetta.
Yeah.
Cassidy's old friends have been burned by him or fucked over. And then
Well, I think-
Jesse's just like always, in the book anyway, tied to like his family or some old like story we need to get.
He's got a lot of personal baggage, which is like slowing him down.
Yeah.
Well,
Palmer?
I think the other part is that's fun is Tulip's back. Cassidy probably screwed over Dennis when Dennis was 18. And obviously we didn't get the French translation of whatever the hell he said.
Well, now that you ask, it translates rough. I got this off of Reddit because he opens the door and he says to him, "We want to stay. Do you mind if we stay?" And he goes, "It's not Dennis, it's Denny. What do you want now? You always want something, don't you? Perhaps it's nothing, or it'll be different this time. After you come into my home, you turn my apartment into a pigsty. You eat and drink like crazy, and you party all night. And then where are your other prostitutes?" Like, 'cause that's like right at the very end. And then and as he walks away, it's like, "I'm too old for this fucking shit," kind of a thing. So it's it's all hinting at like he comes in like a hurricane and he leaves chaos in his wake.
So maybe we will get this his backstory.
Yeah,
Some of Annie and
because here's the thing, it's all
personal history.
because when you go through the book and I jumped over to the Dixie Fried section of the storyline, and Cass has got stuff going on in that town, not Tulip. Like, you know what I mean? So it's like, if we're going to be in Louisiana all season, more or less, we could just be getting like, Dixie Fried reworked a little bit, where by the end of it, maybe.
hope we're not in Louisiana all season. I don't care how much they transplant from other places in the story. I don't want to be in Louisiana for more than another 2 episodes.
Well, I think it depends on what's really going on here. Because if they're looking to have this kind of be like to move up the whole Dixie Fried thing where the voodoo stuff happens and he gets to connect with Genesis and have a deeper understanding of what's really going on and everything.
Yeah.
We're here. I know in the book they backtrack sometimes on their road trip. Like, they go to New York and then they end up back in New York, I believe. You know what I mean?
Yep.
They're in Louisiana. The story goes to Louisiana at least twice.
Yeah.
And the reason it's there the second time is because he's got to go back and do the voodoo thing.
Right.
So maybe, if they want to keep the good stuff with his family till later, because that's kind of juicy shit.
Yeah.
Then they should, and they want to, for TV's sake, get a little more of the story out there.
Yeah.
Then this is the perfect time to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And I will say that moving the voodoo up to now so he gets a better understanding of Genesis is probably better for everybody who hasn't read the comics.
Yeah.
Because in the comics we get the angel's perspective of Genesis and the history behind it. And you can give that through Jesse's understanding of Genesis when they get their more of a symbiotic relationship.
Right.
Because we don't have any angels left to tell us their perspective on what the hell just happened. Plus, it's a different voice and a different perspective that you can probably only get away with in panels, and I don't think you could really do in a television show without taking people way out of the story.
Well, that's the thing too. Like, I wonder how much of it really is because they talked about it too. Like, where like, some of the things we're kind of doing the way we're doing them because there's such crazy ideas that we don't want to kind of build to them in a sense. So it's like, that's why like we're only getting told things. I think we're not really seeing things so much. Like, like right now we are seeing hell, so that's a big step. We saw some hell last season, quote unquote. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But like these things, like, like will we ever get John Wayne / Cowboy? You know what I mean? And will some of these things that we expect from the comics get triggered maybe? Like, I'm still hoping for the red eyes maybe at one point. Like, when him and Genesis get a better bond, like, kind of like in the back of my head, I'm hoping that, like, as a visual representation that he's different now, that he's next level, it would be like, the eyes changing red when he uses the word. But, I mean, that's just like a hope that they probably won't do. But, but small stuff like that, like, I wonder if, like, they're just planning to kind of bring them in later on.
So I want to ask,
almost sci-fi edge to it.
Yeah, or just kind of have it feel like these things that like kind of would like all at once be like a little too much. Make them things that get earned story wise. Like if we were gonna have a reveal with Cassidy and his fucked up eyes, like when the glasses finally come off, then what if he starts to wear them more and more often, and then eventually like it's like, or we finally are at a certain point because Jesse hasn't seen him in a while, he's wearing them all the time, and then like. Much like in the book, they come off and he sees like these horrible eyes, like, Right. What are we gonna say, Palmer?
Just tangentially, I want to ask you a question.
This has been all tangentially. Go on.
Yeah, I know. So they're in hell, and obviously we saw Hitler. Do you think they're gonna do any jokes as if he walks down the hallway with like looking into other cells and seeing other people in hell?
I'd be surprised if this show. I mean, look, these guys aren't bringing Hitler into this. This is not in the book. They're not bringing Hitler into this to not make jokes.
About Hitler.
Yeah.
I'm not talking about Hitler necessarily saying like our space will look in other cells and we'll get to see like they're going to pick on some other people.
Yeah, I think so.
Like Genghis Khan.
I saw a shot where it was like Hitler, like two other guys and our space. So whether or not those are like known mass murdering types.
Like William Gacy.
Gotcha.
Yeah, but I wouldn't be surprised.
It's just,
I think it's going to be a matter of
maybe H.H. Holmes. He's popular now on the History Channel.
There you go, Jack the Ripper. These kinds of types, public domain types.
Yeah.
Let's keep that in mind. You don't want the William Gacy family all of a sudden coming out and saying, "Hey, that clown makeup is copyright." All right, let's get back into the story here a little bit. All right, so he says Dennis, and we're all like Dennis who? Tulip and Cass take a walk. Jesse goes off to do his own thing. She's still nervous. She runs into a lady who knows her, Miss Barbary. She's like, hey, we should catch up. And that's about all you get out of that, except that it just reinforces the fact that Tulip is like, word's going to get out that I'm here, and blah, blah, blah. So they get to Dennis's house. Dennis is an old pal. He speaks only French. And then a moment later on, Tulip and Cass are in a room together, and they're talking, and, she's like, don't worry, you just leave it. Don't worry about me. You can't help. And, Cassidy gets kind of offended by that a little bit, where it's like, I've done nothing but help you, and I've done nothing but keep secrets with you. Like, let me help. I can help out. He's like, you treat me just like the idiot Irish sidekick.
Duh.
Yeah. I mean, except for like the blithering idiot, you're a goofball. So that's what everybody misinterprets the idiot aspect for. Which is a good point. I'd like to see some. I mean, he's sharp when he I want to see some real kind of like ingenious things from him. Like he's the one character that this amped up version of him compared to the comics works.
Yeah, well, it's because the basis of this character is somebody who knows human nature and how to manipulate it.
Yeah, well, there's that.
That's a big part of Cassidy.
Yeah.
So if you're amping up Cassidy, that's a big part of what you're amping up. So it's great for TV.
So as Jesse wanders, eventually he wanders all through these bars and stuff, and asking, where's God? And we've seen God. Eventually, one bartender does tell him about a singer, so he goes to see her. And this begins this very complex, what turns out to be a very complex plan by the Grail that only works in TV. These over elaborate, you placed her as a lounge singer, and you got the other guy to be the bartender at the other place. Right. Luckily, Jesse ended up there, I guess. Yeah. Well, and you got the baby as the cover for the backstory, and I get it, it's a TV show, but it's one of these things where, on the rewatch, it's like, this is quite some work just because he might have this power.
80s plot planning.
Yeah.
Did they even say the Grail, though? Is that something that we know from the comics because we know who they are? I don't remember anybody saying anything about
No, they weren't name dropped as the Grail.
She said something about guys in white suits.
And being a neo-fascist. Yeah, she drops this line about, religious neo-fascist paramilitary. I can't remember it now. I should have probably copied and pasted that out from somebody's description.
Well, I think that was a little too big for Twitter, so... Yeah,
it's more than 140 characters, I think, that description. So with that, she's like, okay, well, I can tell you about God. Just meet me outside. He goes outside where she's getting into a cab, but
she just said that she'd wait for him, and she's running away.
Right, well, that's that's because it's all part of setting him up.
Yeah.
Because they're going to crash into the cab when she leaves.
Right.
That's the thing where this plan is too perfectly intricate kind of a thing. It's Mission Impossible stuff.
Sure, and it causes how much damage between vans and cars and people.
Innocent bystanders.
When they could just be standing outside in a circle when he opens the door.
But, but at the same time, if Jesse doesn't go after the taxi, he's not our mark.
Right.
Oh, well, we lost two cars.
Sure. They'd figure out, they'd have some backup plan, I'm sure. But it is elaborate in a way where it's okay, so the van crashes into him. He manages to stop it using the word. But in Jesse style, he goes, hog wild on a fist fight with five guys.
He should never have a chance of winning.
Yeah, a normal guy.
Normal guy. As he's not paramilitary. These guys are all paramilitary guys who gave up their lives for the Grail, right?
One guy is doing capoeira, where he's doing the he's doing the somersaulty spin kick thing, what I mean? And it's like, okay.
Yeah, the breakdancing kung fu.
Maybe this is just the B squad.
Well, they technically are, because eventually she says, let's kick this up to Samson unit.
Yeah, but
go ahead.
It should still never have happened like that. He should have at some point had to just say, stop. And he should have in that situation.
Yeah.
He's still new with this thing. He's got to learn to make mistakes.
Yeah.
So this is a perfect situation for him to do something that comes back later on and he finds out, wow, I did something stupid.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
He should have taken a couple of hits in realism. And then that's maybe where using the word came in. You know what I mean? Because it was just, it was cool as hell. Don't get me wrong. It was well done.
Yeah, it was a great fight scene.
And he did all that You know, the camera was tight on that whole scene.
Absolutely.
And
I think it was one camera most of the time.
Yeah, I think it might have been
This was
two
not a
shots.
Captain America movie.
It might have been 2 shots, but like, you know, eventually once that starts, like, yeah, and it's all him. Go ahead, Paul.
Yeah, I don't think that this is him not use. I don't think this is because he didn't want to use the word.
I think he just went bullhead. He's supposed to just kind of like rushing into it.
No, I think this is all. We spent an entire episode in episode 2 with Tulip saying, "Don't just use the word whenever," and I feel like she's kind of in his head now. At least as far as the show is concerned.
Yeah, but at the same time, it's like, you know. I could have seen him.
It's still a situation where he should not have been able to win that fight without using.
I think
the
she
word.
would have been like, "Yeah, use it." You know what I mean? I think, you know, her being her, this Tulip would have been like, "No, yeah, that's where you're supposed to use it." Like, you know.
No, I think this Tulip would have been you beat the crap out of all of them, or I'm not sleeping with you.
This Tulip, right. You ain't man enough for me unless you're kicking the ass of 5 fucking military guys.
That's true. You can't have sex with her unless you break a door down with
That's
your
true.
bare hands,
That's true.
so.
You have to earn it. You have to earn it with this lady.
Yeah.
All right. So he kicks all the asses, right? You know, barroom brawl style, and then. She goes back to the apartment with the singer. She tells him basically everything he needs to know, although it's one of these things where, much like when Cassidy in season 1 was like, yeah, I'm a 115-year-old vampire, it's like kind of like he just kind of, you know, it's so blasé that it's almost like, all right, whatever. I'll kind of write that off. You know what I mean? But she does describe the whole scene, and then, like, you know, she's like, okay, whatever. She tries to do the kiss because she's really there to try and get him to stop her. So, or just, she needs proof that the word works, that this thing that they think he has is true. And so she tricks him into using it, you know, by leaning in for the kiss. And then they're like, okay, whatever, we're done here. Get in the cab. See you later. We'll try a cab again with you. See if this second taxi doesn't bring trouble. Which, again, is just like, you know, was a thing where, like, watching it the first time through and not knowing 100% if this was all set up, I was like, you know, it was a little easy that, like, you know, these people came for her, 5 guys ready to snatch her up, but, like, we're just back at the house chilling, packing up, getting out of Dodge. Like, they're not here waiting. There's not, like, the crew doesn't come, you know what I mean? So
there's time for her to try and hit on him, have sex, get a quickie in, you know, before she runs.
But even Dominic Cooper and a little bit of the extras on AMC was like, you know, and he's not really sharp to all this, you know, kind of a thing he says. Like, he just gets all caught up in being, you know, helpful and all that stuff. So sometimes he doesn't see it. He doesn't really see what's going on 100%. So she leaves. She gets in another cab. When she leaves, he walks across the street, and that's when he sees the poster for Angelville. Some kind of carnival-like kind of poster for Angelville, which, besides it just being the name, has the symbol that he's got tattooed on his back. That is on the poster as well. And poster art actually by Sean Phillips, if comic fans know who that guy is. He's been an artist for a long time on all kinds of books. Usually he works with Ed Brubaker. So that's like a little foreshadowing hint that it's not far, even by locality, which is kind of the situation in the books too. It's Texas-Louisiana border kind of a thing. So they're hinting at it so hard that I don't think we're going to be long for seeing stuff. What I'm starting to wonder is if this season is split between locations in a way, or, you know, if we're not here for long, I think the next place we might end up is, or at the very least this season will end with that whole kind of setting up where they get where Tulip and Jesse end up getting kidnapped, taken anyway, back to Angelville.
Yeah, I think we get a flashback. We get a couple episodes of them dealing with Tulip, and I think the whole thing wraps up with Jody being introduced, and we're left wondering what's going on next.
Could very well.
Yeah, maybe along the way Jesse finds out some stuff about Genesis.
Yeah. Because that's kind of like, I think if that's kind of like the progression of the story, like overall. If it's like, okay, well, right around here, he gets a bigger download of info.
I think he starts finding out Genesis. Then he realizes that, then he hears the story about something's up with Tulip. So then he's got to go take care of that.
Yeah.
So now we're another 3 episodes, 4 episodes, and then we're now at 6, 7.
Yeah, well, it's 13 episodes this season. What were you going to say, Palmer?
I was just going to say, I really hope that because knowing that it's different from the books, I'm trying to figure out if I want him to get the info dump before Angelville or after. And I'm
Yeah.
not saying that. I'm just saying that from the show, separating the show.
Right.
I kind of like the idea that he wouldn't have the info dump beforehand, because the audience that hasn't read the books is going to get a huge info dump on their own with his family backstory.
Well, it's a matter of like of kind of like introducing all these kind of like things that like basically just the thing with the family you can kind of I think build to in a way and lead to and step by step main story. The problem with the info dump is it's like thing where it's like it's gonna be like exposition and like literal info dump, like so. Do they bother to get all flashy and visual with it and show us cool stuff and do some cool camera things, or is it going to be a thing where like we don't see it and we just get told verbally and like sorry kids, like we kind of it's all there, it happened, but like maybe we're just not in Jesse's head like we are in the books, which would be kind of a shame because that's like it's a way to kind of have fun with the show and stuff. They should go for it,
It would be a great vehicle to keep everybody up to speed with what's going on inside his head.
Well, absolutely that.
Because tons and tons of shit are going on inside his head right now.
I just wonder sometimes with things like that, like if this show has to kind of like be like we just don't have a budget to kind of pull that off in a way that doesn't feel like us kind of, if we want to do it literal, we can't because of budget. Like, what I mean? Stuff like that. What are you gonna say?
They did spend a lot of money on Genesis in the first season. Like, we're going to see Genesis again.
Phil Collins ain't cheap. Sorry.
I feel like that's the way we're going to get the info dump. Is basically they're going to bring up Genesis and change colors as it did before, only now it's speaking to Jesse.
Right. And
thanks to Bill, now every time I hear Palmer say Genesis, all I can think of is Phil Collins songs. Thank you, Bill.
All I can say is Susu Studio.
That's all you can say?
That's all I can say.
I can't.
And now I'm stuck. Now I got like invisible touch. Okay. So one of the things I'll say to that real quick is that Seth Rogen and Evan Goldberg did a Reddit AMA this week, and one of the things that was asked was like, again, it's not really more info, but was asked again like, okay, so why does the Saint of Kill the word not work on him? And their reply was, we'll learn this very soon why it doesn't work on some people. And I was like, oh, some people. So the only time it doesn't work on anybody in the books is when Jesse goes home to the family, and the family's made a deal, and the grandmother made a deal with God.
Okay, right, yeah, that's true.
Yeah. And we don't know right away.
That's why she's like still alive, and she's 180.
Well, yeah, there's that, and it's also like she's like she knows right away all about Jesse's bullshit because God gave her the scoop, kind of a thing. Like, you know what I mean? She's like, yeah, right. Your little trick won't work on me, won't work on us, like
right.
or whatever. So I wonder if there's
God can do something.
Yeah, or if there's some kind of like what we're gonna see is and us learning that info. Is that gonna come in this info dump that in the storyline of the books happens around now? All right, so back to it. So we saw the poster for Angelville. Tulip calls Jesse, and it turns into one of these typical kind of conversations where it's like, well, you ain't saying nothing. Well, you ain't saying nothing. Well, all right, fine. I gotta go.
And of course she's pissed.
Yeah.
Because
she's frustrated with her own inability because like she kind of wants to say it on the phone. She wants to say something, but she can't muster it up, and it turns into a shitty phone call.
She's afraid to bring him into her problem.
Right. So she just is like, "Fuck, I'm gonna go out," and then Cass is like, "Where you going?" She's like, "I'm going to get smokes." So then we jump back to Arseface. Hey, you remember that kid?
Yeah.
So he's in hell, and then we get to see the cell door next to him, and it's our old friend Hitler.
Seek hell, motherfucker.
Hey, like, what do you call Adolf for short? Addy? Aid?
I'm just saying.
Dolph.
His Arseface's only mistake was when he left the cell. He said hello. Like, just
Yeah.
Pick a direction and start walking. But
Because he's a nice guy. He's gonna say hi to everybody. He's a nice guy. He's horse face.
It's not wet enough.
It's not horse face.
There you go. It's a little, gotta get a little
Yes,
juicy.
fella.
It's gotta be a little juicy.
Yes, it's gonna be all loose.
A little loosey juicy. All right, so that's really just kind of like that's it for that moment. You just see him come out. Jesse then back to Jesse in the jazz club. He's there with George R.R. Martin from Game of Thrones, with a giant beard, deep cut daddy-o, and all that stuff.
Yeah. And the whole time I'm sitting there like, is he supposed to be God?
And I think that's what they did on purpose. Like, the same thing with the dog too. They're like, yeah, people may think it's maybe is God. Dog spelled backwards is God. You know what I mean? Or whatever. Or maybe that. So I got a feeling that every time he's gonna run into somebody, it's like some kind of typical trope version of like, oh, I bet that guy's God. Like, you know. It's just,
see, that's not what that's not what I thought. I thought they were doing the whole Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 thing, where God's always going to be a celebrity that we know that like Jesse doesn't, because Jesse doesn't know George R.R. Martin, but we do.
Right.
So like
To have a guy who kind of looks like that, maybe, or something. Right.
Yeah.
So he tells the band to play a Walk to the Peak, which is that really annoying song that we heard earlier. Which just turned.
When we were first in the car.
Yeah, which just turns into a cacophony of random sounds, chaos.
Yeah.
But Daddy-O.
Daddy-O says
That's the end of the world.
Yeah.
That's the point of it. Like, you know what I mean? So just he's like, oh, okay. Next scene. Okay, so I'm like, don't know what goes on there. But the next scene is the van from the Grail with our singer friend jumping into the back, tossing someone the baby, saying, next time let's use a dog, and pulling the wig off. And lo and behold, it's Featherstone. Oh. Featherstone. And
she's from the books.
She's from the books. We should be ringing the bell. We should ring the bell whenever something like lines up with the books. You know? And
that's
then,
actually a good thing to do.
Yeah, finally we found a way to use the bell in this show. So then
that's what we got to do.
And get ready, Bob, because sitting in the seat next to her, the bartender, Hoover. Well, once. Let's not, you know.
Well, we like Hoover.
So stuff happens.
Where's the nearest beach?
Yeah, where is the nearest beach? We're far away. We're in Louisiana. There's a coastline, but who knows? They seem pretty central.
Swampland.
Yeah. So she gets in there. She takes off the wig, and she's like, "Yeah, Jesse's power's real. We should kick this up to a Samson unit," which is from the book. And it's like, hey, you know. Hoover's like, are you sure? She's like, yeah.
Shit's hitting the fan.
Yeah,
bro.
it's real. So then we cut to Herr Starr. We finally get a good look at it on the show.
The man with the dead eye.
Man with the dead eye. And looks good. You know? He didn't speak yet. Hasn't spoken yet.
Yeah.
But
the visual
it's all there
that they've created is there. Yeah.
So he's in a fully white office. He's got some international clocks up on the wall.
I'm just anxious to see how he evolves on the show.
Yeah. It's like, you know, it's funny too.
People
like,
who have not read the book have no idea what they could possibly.
It's so funny.
Be in
Last
store
night,
for.
like, there's like this after show that pops up on YouTube and it's live, and I was watching it, and it's like chat room. You know what I mean? So I was jumping in there. There's like 3 people active in this little chat, and this one guy is like asking, like, "Is that in the book? Is that in the book? That's not in the book. That's not in the book." Like everything. Like I'm like, dude, you gotta just read the books.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? And somebody else
and when after you read the book, you need to be listening to our show.
Yeah. Well, I did mention the show, but no one really said anything. And then somebody else on Twitter was like, you know, I responded to it, but they were like, in the preacher hashtag, they were like, so like, is it safe to read the books? Like, will I get confused and mixed up, or like, you know, I forget how they phrased it, but I was like, look, the show is 80% doing its own thing. You're fine to read the books at this point.
Oh yeah.
Like it'll just be 2 separate animals. I feel like, you know, the way they sync up here and there, like it's not like with Game of Thrones probably where it's like it's close enough where like the small things that are different is where you get lost on. Here it's like the broad strokes are different enough where it's like they are very much 2 different animals at this stage anyway.
Yeah,
seasons ahead, who knows? But
you're just gonna get all the key important things from the books. This is my impression of it at this point. You're just going to get all the key points from the books scattered throughout the story as they lay it out to make what they deem is going to be making the most sense in this format.
Yeah.
And I will say one of the things I think is if you like the show, even though it is a different animal for the books, there is a level of detail that the show will just not be able to touch.
Right. The book.
And even though they've changed the characters, Jesse's not entirely the Jesse we know from the books. Neither is Tulip.
Mm-hmm.
There's enough of those characters in there that you get all of these little details about those characters.
It's a deeper look at those characters. You know more of their relationship and their motivations, and it's oddly enough it's more serious now in comparison to, because it's not as goofy or going for jokey joke sometimes as the show does.
Right.
So the book I could see becoming like, some people, like if they only know the show, could end up reading the book and being like, oh, this is like a dark. This is serious. So it's like, we're not sugarcoating everything with a joke or an amusing thing to sell you on the darkness.
Right. Well, I think the story as a whole is presented as being just an over-the-top story.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, and when you look at it as, okay, what kind of an idea did he go into this when he started writing this? And the most basic thing is, okay, just how over the top can I be and still tell an awesome story?
Yeah. Right.
And this is an example of
that. I think we're
and this is where I think that if this show is failing anywhere, it's just in this regard, just slightly, and only because I think they might be going a little too far at times when they just try to go over the top.
Yeah.
Like the book does. I think, they go, okay, well, let's see how far we can go with that.
Yeah.
And then they go just a hair too far.
See, the book goes for over the top, but it doesn't go for over the top in an amusing kind of. Everything's not about being amusing.
Right,
like when I used to say, like, the book is best described as like a dream project between Stephen King and Quentin Tarantino. Like, that's the level, the Quentin Tarantino kind of like level of ironic, twisty turn, dark humor, as opposed to like this more modern sensibility where it's like, okay, let's put some goofy music behind it, bright colors or something. Like, some of these kinds of things.
There's something to be said for the fact that when you go over the top and you're serious, you can get away. You don't have to say everything.
Yeah.
You can do a lot more in visuals if everything doesn't end with a joke.
Right.
And I feel like that's an atmosphere. That's a
tone.
A tone. Yeah.
I mean, when we talk like this, we got to just remember that this is actually a really good show.
Yeah. We're enjoying this now more than we probably thought we were going to coming into season 2 for sure.
We're only talking about the show in comparison to the book because that's what we do here. That's the whole point of this show.
Yeah, I mean, we're doing a comparison
thing. We're not doing it to rip it apart.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And when it comes right down to it, the fact is that they're doing a great job when writing the show and everything. It's just not going the ways we would like.
Right.
So that irks us. So sometimes it'll come off like we're trying to be negative. We're not.
Right.
I mean? We're actually fans of the show. We really like what they're doing. We like the sense of humor. We like everything. It's just when we compare it to the material that we've come to love and like treat almost as a Bible. So
this is how we break it down.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And
but that's because we've read the book more than once. I've read through the whole thing at least twice.
Yeah.
So
with that, let's jump into the last scene then. Let's mention that Herr Starr has folders on his desk. The top one says pig, but the one beneath it is Jesse Custer. Yeah. So it's a question of
pig.
I don't know if it means anything. It's just a matter of saying like, well, would Jesse be right on top, or would something else be on top? Yeah. And then let's say like, what's a funny thing for it to say? Right. Maybe.
I don't know. Pig's a fat animal, Bill.
Pig's
a fat animal.
He might be into.
It could. That went through my head.
What were you gonna say, Bob?
It could be a side way to get the Quincannon family back involved.
Maybe.
It could be a meat reference.
Well, it's certainly, if it's anything, it's obviously, since it's just the one word, it's some kind of nickname or a code name or something like that. But I don't know. You never know with this show. Again, I go back to the dog's eye. When we zoomed in on the dog's eye, is it just a moment to kind of have like an odd or weird or funny thing? Or
is Herr Starr under there?
Or or is is something more going on? So the last scene is the last two scenes was Jesse finding out that thing is all about the end of the world, that jazz song, and then Tulip going to the laundromat because she's going out for cigarettes. I guess is the closest place. Get some change for a $100 bill, and then as she's going to take out a pack of Pilgrims.
Yeah,
from
well,
the vending machine.
The world's most expensive pack of Pilgrims, because that.
Inexpensive, I'd say.
Well, no, because for her it was $100 pack. Because she gave the guy $100 bill. All he had was a $5.
Yeah.
So she took that to the change machine.
Right.
For a pack of cigarettes.
Some $100 cigarettes.
So that's a $100 pack of cigarettes. The most expensive. I guess New York isn't that bad.
Yeah, I guess not. Yeah, so pack of Pilgrims, and then these dudes roll up on her from behind, and these guys that work for Victor, who. Actually, if anybody wants to go take a look at it, they put out a preview scene every week, sometimes two, from the episode, and they do have one where she kind of just gets brought into his office, and she sits down, and then Victor comes out of the back room, sits down, and he's like, "What are we going to do with you?" So it's much like they showed the dog scene in the comic from the beginning of the episode, from when they go to the bar to right before you see the dog. You see the old man, but you don't see the dog. So they like to use these scenes where like it fills a lot of time for a preview, but you don't get a lot.
Right.
Like, you know what I mean? It's like, oh, where are they going in the back of the bar? And it's like, oh, they're going to see God. End of preview.
And of course, God looked like George Burns.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it looks like the old. I want to say anybody from. Crap, I can't think
Well,
of
he
the
just
name of
looked
the
like
movie.
he walked out of the nursing home and got lost, and just has been there ever since.
Yeah, he's an extra from Cocoon, I think, or Batteries Not Included, something from the 80s. All right, so that kind of wraps up the recappy part, and I guess we could say, are there any questions going into expectations or thoughts moving ahead, whether it's episode 4 or further ahead? Stuff like, hey, Eugene's
now
in
that
hell.
we're seeing, well, are we going to see Eugene get out of hell?
Sure, right.
I think Eugene's going to be in hell for the rest of the season. He's going to get out.
And that'll be
he's going to get out
moment.
he might get out in the last episode, but as our introduction into Eugene's storyline,
they're going to play with
him
this
on
for a
the
while,
bike,
I think.
I feel like Eugene on the bike with the helmet is an opening for season 3.
Yeah.
At this point,
that would be good
because they've established him in hell, and you don't do that if you're just going to have him come out.
Yeah.
Any episode.
I mean, he's got a story arc that kind of goes up and comes down because, like, right in the beginning, he's a nice guy, and then he finds out Jesse's responsible, so he wants to kill Jesse, and then in the end, he becomes a nice guy again, gets a record deal, blah, 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 blah. You know, so he's got some peaks and valleys. And so, I always go back to this thing where, like, I want him to come back to Earth in the ashes of Anvil and, like, does the whole scream at the sky thing.
I'm gonna get you, Jesse Custer.
There you go. And at the end, he farts, I guess. He was squeezing.
The mouth fart.
No, I know, it's a mouth
He's trying to hold back all the drugs,
There's a lot of air and
There's a lot of stuff going on here.
yeah, there's a lot of air and juice going on. So that's the kind of thing I'm dying to see.
I do think at this point, I mean, based on your question, I want to get to Angelville real soon. I don't want that to go on for too much longer.
Yeah.
And kind of want that info drop to happen.
Yeah.
Because I want to see them get, even if it's not moving, as in they're going to San Francisco or New York or wherever they decide to take them physically next.
Right.
I want to see the story start moving. I don't want it to stall in New Orleans.
I think the biggest, like, if being realistic, kind of tip off is the casting stuff, and who gets some title card credits in the openings, and I knew going in that they had cast Herr Starr, Hoover, and Featherstone, and granted they're going to be long-term regulars for the show, obviously.
Yeah.
But and I don't know if
Witherspoon and Herr Starr, Hoover's going to get a vacation.
Well,
right, but I mean they're in here for
Hoover's
more
going
than
to the beach. He's not getting a vacation.
It's not quite a vacation. It's sun, but it's no fun. All right, so it's all sun, no fun. So, but my point being is that, like, I kind of feel like when we start to get into Jesse's family territory, Cody and TC and Grandma, like, those people are going to be around for a little while when they come in. Jody, Cody. Maybe I'm just thinking about all the guys
You're
that
hosting a show about.
I was trying to make a joke. I think maybe I was confusing it with all the Codys that Tracy Loach was hooking up with when she was rattling it off. Cody D, Cody H.
Wait, really? Cody D?
Cody D? And she's like, yeah. But I think that's going to be the big tip off in a way. Is like, when all of a sudden there's an old lady and a couple guys who look like they could play those guys, cast. I'm trying to stay away from like the IMDb stuff because I know that'll always kind of like that's where like stuff last season was leaking out from people being like, I don't know if you saw it on the IMDb, but XYZ was cast, and it's like, well, okay, obviously that guy's gonna be Santa Killers, okay, you know what I mean? Or so it's not like I know what's coming anyway. I shouldn't really give a crap, but I do want to have some kind of surprises of when these people
you think
will
you know
pop
what's
up.
coming because
the
way these guys are writing the show,
Good point, Bob. Bringing it back to reality.
You don't really know what's going to happen. Santa Killers could come in riding a Harley Davidson and decide, dude, I'm going to hang for a while because I'm liking this Iron Horse.
If they update it that much, as cool as that'll be as a visual, I don't know, man. I feel like what keeps that guy at bay is the fact that he has to walk. You know what I mean?
Come rolling up, little death tone in the background.
They might actually put him on a horse at some point just to speed him up. But that's what's someone put that out there too, and I responded to it on Twitter. It was like, how come he doesn't react to anything modern day? He's from like 100+ years ago. And I'm like, because he's the Santa Killers. He's on a mission. Like, he don't look at stuff. And she's like, all right, but not even a little bit. And I realized I was like, you know what? Actually, with this show, eventually they'll probably have to just to do something different with him, where like something will happen. And
I want to see him stop in a roadside diner, a dusty roadside diner, and take a dump.
All right, that's different than me just being like he sees a cat. Well, I mean, we don't see him eat or anything like that. You know what I mean? Because he's a force of nature, like in the book.
He's dead.
He doesn't follow the same.
Saint, so
he's not
he's
operating.
like an angel, basically.
He's not operating the same rules.
Right. So he don't need to eat shit or none of that.
Sleep
stuff.
or any of that.
Yeah, no.
And
he's
I think
Jaws.
yeah.
What a Deadeye.
I think he's just, he's obsession incarnate is what I put in that tweet. That he just keeps on going. He don't look around. He's not amazed by cell phones. You know what I mean? Which, by the way, I was like, oh, I guess that's why. That's like how they found Jesse and them, because they all have cell phones. Which was like the first time I think we saw them using cell phones at all on this show.
Yeah.
I don't even think in season 1 anybody.
Well, here's the thing.
Maybe they flipped them out for a phone
they're in
call.
a tiny little friggin' town.
No reception.
Say that again, Palmer.
Anvil has no reception.
Well,
I mean, not anymore, but it didn't before either.
You don't think they had a T-Mobile out there somewhere? At least one tower.
No, I really don't think they did.
Population like 17. You don't think they had at least one?
You think Verizon missed that town back in the days when they had that guy going around? Can you hear me now?
I think someone's got a satellite phone and they got a hotspot. I think that's. And they rented it out to people like they do in third world countries and stuff.
Yeah, there you go.
Right, there you go.
Yeah. So let me jump real quick over to emails, and then we'll check the email account there because I know we had one, and we'll see if anything else has popped up. But moving forward with the show, it's gonna be interesting to see who else pops up in hell.
Yeah, now that they got Herr Starr and Witherspoon, and Hoover, you think we'll find out just how perverted Herr Starr can be? Are we going to see him as a fully developed pervert?
Right.
Or are we going to see his perversions
come on?
Because that's how it happens in the book.
Right. What were you saying?
Well, I was going to say, he shouldn't be there yet.
Well,
that's
it's a slow reveal.
See later. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it comes on, once it comes into play, it comes in pretty aggressively because it's always aggressive with him.
Yeah, it does. But, I mean, if the whole thing with the dog, the guy in the dog suit, is Herr Starr, then we're seeing him already at full nut job, at full pervert.
You know what? I think we're in pretty good shape because they actually, during that dog scene, they had a platter there that had a spiky rubber dildo on it, now that I think about it.
Yeah.
that I think
There was a
got
couple of
by the
things on there.
censors because they thought it was like a doggy chew toy because it was also like little doggy biscuits and shit on the plate. So when you look at it, there's this blue like rubber spiky, looks like a chew toy, but I'm pretty sure it's like a dildo. It's probably like something soft and floppy, kind of a dildo.
I think it's partially covered up or something.
It's at the back side of the plate, so you really don't know what it is. But I could swear it was a fucking
because the old guys hold them like it's hors d'oeuvres.
Yeah, actually, yeah.
You know, because that's what you do in the
That's
dark
what you do.
room in the back of a dirty
Yes.
old dive bar.
Yes. This is where you go to find God. All right, so we did.
So I'm sorry. So to finish up.
Mm-hmm.
So are we going to see any of that? Are we going to see?
Yeah, I think
Will
so.
the spoon fall in love with Herr Starr despite this?
Yeah.
Are we going to see Hoover's
Featherstone.
Oh, sorry. All right, we're going to see. All right, Featherstone. I keep saying with this.
Yeah,
book,
you did.
right? Featherstone. And what about Hoover? Are we going to see the big thing that from the book that we all know they have to put in?
You know what? I will say this: if it's not sand, it better be fucking blades of grass. I don't care.
Yeah, something like that. But if they dodge this one, like so far they've dodged the go fuck yourself.
Right.
Like it's
Yeah, but
gonna
this is clean.
it's gonna start to
This
feel like
I don't think they will. I think they're going to use it because it shows that Jesse's learning how to use his powers.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I don't think so either. I mean they'd be
So-
foolish to not use it.
Yeah, it's such
think
an
it-
awesome thing.
I think when you take like the 10, you talk about the 10 best like moments from the entire run of the book, like that's in the top 5.
Yeah,
Easily.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Maybe top 3.
Yeah, easily. And that's like talking about like things that aren't like a punchliney joke or a really cool fucked up thing like in one moment. Like
You know what?
Right.
in comparison to like Grandma.
Right.
Like that's still like number 3, like number 4. It's just a fucking mind fuck kind of
Yeah.
a thing. It's like, oh, you poor
Or
bastard.
the guys in the desert with the leg.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean? That's on there too. You know what I mean? There's such a diverse palette of things that are
Oh
on
my
that
god!
list.
Yeah. It is a diverse palette.
I will say this though that
Yeah.
I cannot stop thinking forward now that the Grail is in play with Starr
Sure.
and Featherstone and Hoover. I cannot stop thinking about the Grail base and what awaits us when we get there.
What? The one here,
Mainly
Mossad.
because I know we'll see a very fat man. That's an easy thing to do. But the Neanderthal, I think they're going to shy away from. But I know that's season 3 at least. We're not there yet. But I can't help but go there.
Yeah, I think we're gonna get it all, man.
You think we're gonna get the sex detectives?
Well, that's a thing where like I really think
We're already past that.
no,
kinda, sorta.
No, you can
not
throw
yet.
that in any time.
Timeline wise, no, not yet.
Fair enough.
But yeah, and I think because Rogan every once in a while when someone asks him like, oh, who would you play on the show, he won't say, but they do think that there's one particular character that he could pop up as.
Oh, sigh.
It's either Psy or this is what I think. It's either Psy or one
his
of the heavy set guy in the sex
Sex
detective.
detectives,
Well,
yeah.
they do. The sex detectives. Am I mixing this up? They do have a run-in with Herr Starr at some point, right?
Yeah.
That's one of the sex detectives in the alley.
I'm not 100%. I'm gonna roll with it and say yeah, but I'm not 100% on that. That's
If not,
that's
it's
just
a
me.
guy who's drawn really like similarly.
That could be it. I mean, don't get me wrong, but Garth Ennis tried to get a spin-off book for them too. You know how like the Preacher main book runs, and then there's like a miniseries for a couple of characters and a couple of one-shots. He tried to do one for them, and Vertigo was like,
Yeah, no, it's okay.
it went a little too crazy. But I'd love to see some version of them. I feel like you can do them on TV. That you know what I mean, especially within the context of this show and pushing
Well,
envelopes
I
and
think
stuff.
if you do them in this show, every episode they're in, they have to be the entire comedy relief.
Yeah, that kind of a thing.
I mean, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
They have everybody else just has to be have a serious tone the entire time, and let them totally be just for jokes.
So we did get one email this week. It's from James Gilligan. He sent his email to us.
Hey James, how are you?
He sent it to pvp@wickedtheory.com. He says, "Hey guys, couldn't believe you missed the Mumbai Tower joke. I'll be honest, it took me until the wedding scene, but I thought you'd hit it when you were talking about it, when they were talking about it as if they were in the Vegas or a reservation. They're actually at an Indian casino, but it's the wrong kind of Indian. Do not feather. I'm not sure what that means. Have a good week, fellas. Jimmy." So he's got a good point. We were all sitting there like, "Oh yeah, is it Indian casino? What kind of casino?" It's like, yeah, it's Indian casino, but it's the real Indians.
Right.
So
Not the ones that got mistaken for being Indians by Columbus.
Right. So there's that. If you want to send in emails, like I said, send them to pvp@wickedtheory.com. We'd love to hear your comments, your thoughts, your opinions about this show, about the show that we're watching, or about the books.
We're going to hear them? They got video? We got video emails?
No, that's why I said we'd love to hear them. Someone's going to read them.
Oh.
Right?
Okay.
Yeah, well, so
because you're gonna
I dodged that one.
You're gonna get somebody to read them out loud while we sit there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe
Palmer, what are you doing later?
you want to be just the official email guy?
I can send email.
Well, that's fair. You can do that whenever you like. Whenever you're not on the show, buddy, you can send in an email. How about that? I'll give you permission. I feel special.
That's for this show, though, right?
Yeah. He can't send emails to the other show.
Anyone who doesn't listen to the other show doesn't.
Except
know
I
that,
kind of can, but I have to ask permission first.
That's exactly it. He can't send them to the other one without running them by me first. There's rules. There's just rules. There's rules.
There's rules for slave labor.
Oof, boy. So special thanks to a few people on our Twitters. The Preacher Wiki, Preacher _ AMC. Those are a couple of people who help out at Anvil Texas, Anvil TX. As far as official accounts go, there's a whole bunch of other people that regularly retweet us and give us shout outs. If I started making a list right now, I would sound foolish because I'd miss people. So maybe I'll do that next week. I'll give some shout outs. And then thanks for listening.
Yeah.
Come back soon, probably in about a week, if we're doing our job right. And maybe we'll have an email from you to read.
Yes, sounds good.
How about that? People want to check out Agent
Perhaps.
Palmer. Go check out agentpalmer.com. And then you can check out our show, Wicked Theory podcast, wherever good podcasts are given away for free. Thanks for hanging out. And until the end of the world, Pilgrims.
Peace.
Peace.
Later.